Bill Cherne from Mediasite has been involved with the streaming media industry for years. And of course, Mediasite is all about delivering online education and enterprise communications. And that's only become more crucial in the last 6 months. So Bill, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
What's the current state of things for your customers and their video needs, given what we all know is going on?
Yeah, I think the two previous presenters summarized it well, and it's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of very fast change. I think those are the two big things we're seeing with our customers right now. So in the we kind of operate in two spaces. The Mediasite product, we got the higher ed world, which is universities either being in person to some degree or 100% remote or somewhere in the middle, and always at the brink of that changing at any moment. And for our corporate customers, they're in a similar boat. They're trying to, I think, keep business running, keep the lights on, keep profits coming in and high. But their workforce is now suddenly remote, where a lot of people may not have been used to working remote. So what they're seeing is that, you need to be ready for anything at this point. And the other thing we're seeing too is probably not a big surprise. A lot of customers are switching over to using, unified communication tools like Zoom and GoToMeeting and Teams and all those sorts of things. But there's still a really strong need to capture video centrally and distribute it to your audience. So if we go with like the corporate scenario, there's still a need for that CEO to get up at some point and give a town hall address, or for a CTO to give an update, or for employees and teams to give these updates. And what we're seeing is, pre-COVID, a lot of this was done on-prem. So our media server product can be deployed on-prem or in the cloud with us. So, typically for a corporate customer, if they said, hey, I want to stream to 10,000 employees next Thursday. Okay, your servers are in-house, your encoders are in-house, your content's in-house, your viewers are in-house. It's a big network problem, but it's all over fast LAN. Now, what we're seeing is they suddenly got to switch. Like, yeah, we still want to present to those 10,000 people, but we got some people over VPN, we got some people at home on Wi-Fi, got some people dial in from their car on LTE, and we got some people in the office. So, what is the best way to do that? And that's a lot of the discussions we're having right now, and how to change and pivot quickly without breaking the bank.
Sure. So as we see more and more employees working from home, and that's likely to continue for the foreseeable future, are you seeing more of your customers move their video deployments to the cloud to enable that more dispersed communications while keeping that central recording ability?
Yeah, we are seeing that shift. So I think with COVID, and everybody's kind of mentioned this before, it's really a compression and acceleration of what was already happening. So a lot of our customers, I've been doing this for almost 15 years, and on-prem was the only way to do it back then. And then cloud comes in, and everybody's like, yeah, that seems great, but I'm nervous about data, I'm nervous about security, I'm nervous about not having my physical hands on the servers and touching things and being in contact with that data and having 100% control of it. But really, COVID has kind of forced people's hands. So again, if you're trying to hit that 10,000 person webcast on Thursday, you can either throw a bunch of hardware at it and do some load testing and cross your fingers and just hope it works, really, because you're trying to do this in a short period of time. Or you can say, all right, we'll just offload it to you guys in Mediasite, and we'll tie it in the cloud. You got tied into the CDN. You have all the pieces and the components in place to make that happen. So yeah, it's really kind of initiated that transition even faster for many companies, where before, a year ago, you talk cloud and they're like, yeah, that's cute. Thanks, Bill. No, not happening. Never going to happen in our house. And now they're like, hey, yeah, so that cloud thing, how do we get on that?
Right.
So it's been interesting conversations.
Exactly. I do see we have one of our attendees has raised their hands. We do ask that if you have a question, you type it in the Q&A box, and I will relay it to the speaker rather than putting attendees on screen, just to keep things moving more smoothly. Obviously, when people quickly had to move to working at home, they grabbed whatever technology was close by, and we're using it right now, right? Yeah. But now that, again, we're talking about this long-term effect, how can companies and other institutions choose the right technology to be remote ready for uncertain conditions in the future?
Yeah, and it's really, I think being remote ready is the the right word. So if you think back to March, that horrible time, it was really, everybody's like, hey, you're out of the office tomorrow. and grab what you can, grab your laptops, grab your desktops. And that's much of my team. You know, my tech support team's like, all right, I'll grab some monitors and a few workstations and take them home to the kitchen. And it's with a lot of our customers, it's still very much that situation, you know. So some corporations have had a lot of luxury of being able to say, all right, we're just going to keep everybody remote. We're going to keep it simple. No on-site people are coming in until January 1, or sometimes even further into the year. High ed has had a different situation where they're like, we really need people to come in. Got to have this happen. Yet everybody's just like literally a day away from another, you know, shutdown where you got to send everybody back remote. So what people are trying to do is figure out, how do I use all these different technologies? And what we've seen is a lot of people are like, oh yeah, Zoom, it does a whole bunch of stuff. Let's just use Zoom for everything. And you start to discover quickly the pros of Zoom. I mean, it's a great platform. I love it. It's wonderful. But then like when you have a meeting with 100 people and 100 webcams, like sometimes that's not the best thing, especially if it's a situation like this where it's a webcast. Really, it's 7 people talking or 6 people really doing the conversation, and then the rest are more passive. That's where, you know, webcasting comes into play, and that's where our product helps out with it. So, you know, it's trying to figure out where you're going to use these different tools. So what we've really kind of seen in the field is that it really breaks down to 3, we call them pillars or columns or cylinders, whichever way acronym you want to go with, or whichever analogy you want to go with. But essentially you get the unified communication. So that's really good at the real-time stuff. Like what we're doing right now, we're having a conversation. Zoom is great for that. Teams is great for that. Pick your platform of choice. But then what happens after that is that, where does that video live? How does that get distributed to your teams? I mean, if it's a meeting, there's still value in that. So how do we get that captioned? How do we get that searchable? How do we get that so the people that are not on that call can listen to it, or the people who are on the call can re-listen to it because they were distracted, you know, being in the meeting, but, you know, teaching junior at the side of their desk, you know, helping with math problems, because that's the life we're dealing with many times. So it's really about, you know, you got the webcasting as pillar 1, you got that video management tool as pillar number 2, and that's where Mediasite comes in. There's other products in there as well, but it's really finding that long-term repository for it that you can actually distribute the content from, and not have individual links just floating around, because that just turns into a really tough thing to manage for your employees, and it's also a tough thing to manage as an administrator. Like, where's my content? Where's my intellectual property? You know, it's maybe held throughout 100 different links, and you can't manage that centrally. So Mediasite brings that all together as the main repository. And then I think the third part that universities have had have been doing it for a long time, but corporations are starting to get on track, is some sort of learning management system, or an LMS, or content management system, you know, CMS. And it's really that glue that holds together all of these videos and documents and notes, and just, you know, how do you pull all this stuff together so that you can, you know, recreate what the heck just happened in that meeting? You know, so for a university, they post everything into a course page. You know, that makes sense. You're taking Econ 100, all your Econ 100 videos are there, along with the PDFs your professor has made, and your tests and your quizzes. That's all held in the video content management system. But then on the corporate side, you're still got learning departments that need something similar. And then I'd argue within, you know, even just, you know, like an engineering department or something, you got all these videos about people doing demos for things or meetings. How do you get that stuff, and how do you find it back? And, you know, content management systems or wikis or anything really that you can copy paste links into is a good place to like start to add that glue that holds everything together.
I'm going to throw a little curveball that we didn't talk about ahead of time, but you know, you've talked about universities, you've talked about corporate environments, but certainly one of the things that we're seeing, especially right now, is what's going on at the K-12 level. And that, you know, almost every parent I speak to, and I'm a parent myself, has talked about how there really was, even though you could have seen it coming, there really was a lack of preparation for students being remote this autumn. Students getting yanked out of Google Classroom and thrown into Canvas with no notice. What are some tips and suggestions you might offer to people working in the K-12 environment to have a more consistent, more reliable plan that delivers what they need to the students and teachers and those who have to work with these systems?
Yeah, I'm a parent of 8-year-old twins, so I know very firsthand about trying to educate a second grader on how to use Zoom, how to use meetings, and they figure it out quick. They're bright, but
Right.
it's at, like, last spring, and my school district does a great job, but last spring it was a mess. and I love my school district, so if
Sure.
anybody's watching, but it was like, every morning you'd get a series of emails and say, well, here's the Zoom link for gym, and here's the Zoom link for art class, and here's the Tuesday afternoon Zoom link for teacher reading time. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, thanks for sending that out at 7 a.m. as I'm frantically trying to shove food down the kids' throats and get them dressed and like get off to work and all this stuff. So really, one pivot I've seen a lot of K-12 to do, schools do, is really bring in that LMS, that glue again that holds everything together. So, this semester our schools adapted Canvas, and it's been great. And at least, the Zoom meeting links are in there, and the school meeting links are in there. The recordings are in there. They're pasting it in there. However they get to do it. I have suggestions for improvements, but they're getting it in there so that it's at least one spot where I can tell my son Fred, like, Fred, get into Canvas. The link for social studies is in there somewhere,
right,
hopefully. Now, if he can get into his Chromebook, that's a whole nother thing. But, it's just at least you have one spot to go to, or as I always like to call it within my team, one truth. Where's the one spot you go for that most up-to-date document? Passing things around email, like we got to stop that. It's just not.
Yeah, and that seems to be something that's consistent, in everything you've talked about today, whether it's corporate, university, K-12, having that central repository, wherever that lives, is something that's really crucial.
Yeah.
And so taking a step back away from the challenges that are facing us at this specific time, although I suppose it's related, what are ways in general that you recommend to leverage video to keep your employees engaged, either as they work remotely or even once they someday may come back into the office?
Yeah, that day that seems really far away, but it'll be here soon, I hope. One thing I notice, just with friends, teammates even, it's a high level of distraction. And at the end of the day, maybe it's a little woo-woo, but I believe we got to keep our employees healthy, as happy as we can, given that, we're all thrown into this together, and show grace and try and meet our teammates and our employees and our students and anybody we're educating where we are. Put your feet in their shoes for a second. And, if they're young and single, okay, maybe they're feeling alone through all this and they're feeling scared. If they're older, they're probably feeling scared because, COVID's supposed to be scary for the older generations as well. Or if you're a family, even pre-COVID, anybody with a kid that's gone through that just knows it's hard. It's just really hard. And now you throw that fact that your kids are downstairs learning, sucking up your bandwidth while you're on a Zoom meeting and all this sort of stuff. So I really fall back to, trying to show grace with your employees. Record the meeting, like at a bare minimum, just record it. Record every meeting. And I know some people get a little nervous about it, but, capture it and throw it somewhere. Yeah, I'd love to see it in Mediasite because that's where I work for and that's what I believe in. But even if you're just going to keep the Zoom link in Zoom, keep it there. And then turn on your webcams more. I've done this with my team. I try and show my face all the time. And what I've noticed is our team calls, it leaves a little more distraction. Like we're not quite on the agenda like I'd love to be, but it leaves that talking time to help, bring in that water cooler talk that we're all missing, that we're all craving. We're all desperately craving this. And it helps bring that in so you can keep to remember that these are people that I'm working with as well as that engineer who's going to write the code fix for me. And then, if you're a leader in the organization, video messages, like if you can't do the webcast, fire up your webcam, record a message, say, hey, everybody, great week. Here's what we've won this week. Here's the stuff we could have done better on. Have a great weekend. Just knock out some 4-minute video, however you got to do it, and share it. And our CEO does that quite a bit, and it really resonates well with the team. And I know it's a kind of a good way to end a weekend end a hard week, when you see that message from your leaders and your senior leadership team. So.
Right. And we've certainly over the last 6 months gotten to the point where no one really has an excuse not to use video, right? We all know how to use it now. Some better than others. It doesn't have to be professional level. You don't have to have the professional lights, although all that stuff helps. So I think those are great tips, great ways to end the discussion. One question for you, Bill. You mentioned Canvas. Is that www.infrastructure.com Canvas? I believe
it's not infrastructure. It's Instructure,
Instructure. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Instructure.com.
Just Google Canvas LMS and hopefully you don't run into too many art websites or anything. It usually picks up. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Bill.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thanks for being on.